The PlayStation and the Xbox as brands, well, they're a bit boring.
Here we go.
Welcome back to another video. I could already feel the heat coming off the street. I like to party. I like to get down. All I want to do is dance. I'm sorry, I had to break off into that 80s montage there. But the PlayStation and the Xbox, to me, as brands, are boring. And you might say, how can that possibly be? Look at all the games PlayStation is putting out. Look at all of the content. And Xbox, they've got this subscription service and everybody wants to be there, and all these third parties will take that bag of money from Microsoft to put their games on the service. It's just a win-win, and I'm gonna try and explain it to you. But at first, relax. It's not that serious. Just have some fun. Maybe I'll make a point that you didn't think of. Even I found some points that I forgot, things that I just wouldn't think about or just didn't care about until I heard a good buddy of mine, Retro Bird's video about this. I say good buddy, I don't know him, never met him. That's just something you're supposed to say because it's YouTube, and I don't want people to get angry and say, hey, you stole his idea. But his idea made me think, and that's the reason for this video. So let's get into it. Why do I think PlayStation and Xbox as brands, I'm doing quotes in the air right now, you can't see it, why do I think that they're boring? I want to hyper focus in on the word brand because you can pick one or two or even three first party games and say there's the reason why this console is better than the other. Here's the creativity. As brands, I find them boring, and here's why. Making great business decisions isn't something that gets me personally excited when it comes to going out and buying a video game system. I mean, it's not like I could play great business decisions. I've never seen a game like this. Look at the graphics. Look at the sound, the next-gen smoke. Oh, great business decisions. Game of the year. Now, sure, you could say great business decisions lead to third parties creating only on your platform or bringing great exclusive experiences to your platform, and that making your system the better system to buy within a generation. And sure, that's great, but as a brand, that's boring because as a brand, you want creativity, making great business decisions. Again, let's focus just on that and the word brand. Making great business decisions isn't something that gets me excited because ultimately, if you think about the PlayStation 1, think about games that defined the PlayStation during that generation. Most of them, if not all of them, were third-party games. Why? Because PlayStation made a great business decision in introducing the CD format, Nintendo sticking with cartridges. Sure, they were cheaper to manufacture, and sure, they had faster loading times, but they held less data, and that business decision by PlayStation led to tons of third-party support. Now I can already hear you screaming, what about Horizon? What about The Last of Us? What about Ghost of Tsushima? I say Tsushima, but I know it's Tsushima. Or maybe the one or two other exclusives like Spider-Man, and that's my point. These are really safe games, and there aren't that many. PlayStation as a whole has relied on making incredibly smart business decisions to position their platform above everyone else's. Those third-party deals, some of them just come to PlayStation automatically because they know that consumers are going to skew towards PlayStation because they put themselves in the best position possible to get the most content possible. And as a brand, sometimes, though, that makes things incredibly boring because you tend to create less. You tend to think less outside the box, and you really don't need to create a lot of really great, compelling, unique content when everybody's putting everything on your box to begin with. That is the point of my video here when I say boring. Look at Sega. Made horrible business decisions, led to their own demise, but tons of creativity internally. The games that they were making were not boring. Certainly, as a brand, Sega was not boring, and certainly Nintendo as a brand is not boring because they've decided to double down on themselves, and instead of putting themselves in a great position to get everyone's content. Not that that's a bad thing. There's pluses to that also. But sometimes when that happens, you become complacent, you stop creating. And that's what the video is about. As a brand, I think Sega and Nintendo were much more compelling creatively, much more interesting than, say, a brand that knew how to position themselves incredibly well, make great decisions, and then play it safe with some of the games that they created. You know, Nintendo is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Look at the NES. It had huge market appeal because of the games that came to it. And then Nintendo relied heavily on deals with third parties. They even made deals saying that if you made a game on the NES, it couldn't be anywhere else. They had that much control because the NES was everywhere. And what happened? Those third parties left the Nintendo Entertainment System when Nintendo decided not to move along with the technological trends. In other words, going from cartridge to CD. But how did Nintendo continue to survive? They made bad business decisions. They lost all of that support. They continued to survive because they still do what I'm talking about in this video, what Sega did. But Sega made so many horrible decisions they just could not get out from under. Nintendo continued to create unique experiences. As a brand, they didn't become stagnant or boring, relying on everyone else or making great decisions to be the cool system, to be the system with the most content. They, as a brand, continue to make sure that they were innovative and compelling. That is the only point I'm making here. Not that PlayStation isn't a great system. I have the PlayStation 5. Better games on the system, of course. Final Fantasy is a third-party exclusive. Why is it there? Because of those great business decisions that PlayStation made over the years to put themselves in the position that they're in now. But let's get back to brands, because I can't play good business decisions. Hold on one second. I'm at the final boss in good business decisions. I'll be down when I'm done. I don't even want meatloaf. Now, PlayStation's in a great position as they have these internal studios that create these really unique, huge AAA story-driven games. But as you're seeing, things are getting super expensive, and now competitors that have infinitely vast amounts of cash to outspend their competitors, a la Microsoft and Xbox, what would be left as a brand to keep you afloat? Well, look at Nintendo, still going in this generation with these huge players, always be around even with Microsoft spending tons of cash. Why? Because as a brand, consumers know that they're a creative, unique, compelling company that is always going to double down on themselves. I'm not saying PlayStation doesn't do that, but I'm saying PlayStation as a whole, even lately, are much more dependent on these third parties to create these games exclusively for their systems. And that's fine, because those third parties may use that system in unique ways, a la the SSD or the DualSense controller, and that's a way to push your platform forward. But ultimately, I feel like brands can become a bit stagnant and boring when they feel like they really don't have to push themselves to compete with themselves. And that's what's important. That's what kept Nintendo, and that's what kept Sega, even towards the end. Now, if you made it to this part in the video, I bet you're saying, Worry, you only talked about PlayStation. What about Xbox? Why aren't you talking about Xbox? Well, there's really not much to talk about, because they are ultimately, in my opinion, one of the most boring brands on the planet. I mean, all they're doing is saying, please subscribe to this. We're not really going to have to create anything. And just take a look at their output. It's been not very good, and they're overly reliant on this idea that all of these third parties will run to this service if they give them bags of cash, and they can say, well, more people will play these games. If you turn it on for 5 seconds and then turn it off, that'll count. That's engagement. And again, what happened? The brand became incredibly boring, because instead of doubling down on creative and unique ways to push yourself forward to compete internally with yourself, they just rely on these deals to make themselves look better to their competitors within the industry. And that is a boring brand. Okay, both PlayStation and Xbox are working on really good first-party games, don't get me wrong. I just feel like over time, if these trends continue, you're going to see a degradation in what makes these brands important and special, as opposed to just boring by relying on the position that they're in the market and getting content that ultimately everyone else will get eventually, over creating new, unique experiences that carry from generation to generation to generation. That's the point of the video. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Don't be too harsh. I'm old. I can't handle negativity as well as some of you young people. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.